What's up, everyone, and welcome to another special episode of IndiePod, where we get to talk to the people behind some of our favorite indie games. Today, we have Hannes, the developer behind the upcoming title known as Lone Ruin. Thanks for joining.
Thanks. Hi.
Did I say the name right?
Yeah, sounded good.
Okay, how would you say it, though?
Hannes.
Okay, yeah, okay, I
You
wasn't
were
that
you were
far
pretty
off.
close. You were
I
pretty
wasn't that
close.
far off. All right, like I said before we started recording, I'm bad at names. I just am. I'd love to be more respectful of people, but my body just does not allow it. I don't know what it
Yeah.
is. It's just something
I
about me.
I am probably worse, so I won't take offense. So it'll be all good. It'll be all good.
All right. Well, I just wanted to say thank you again for joining because I am excited to talk about your game. I think it looks great. I think that like we just talked about before we started recording, the colors to it, the combat to it, like there's a lot to love in this game. But I always want to talk about the people behind the game before we get into that, just because a lot of people don't really know who creates these games. Like it just seems like magic half the time. Let's talk about you. Who are you, and how did you get into game creation?
Ah, uh, okay. Bring out the popcorn. No.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Uh, yeah. So my name is Hannes Rahm. I make games full time these days. I started making games or game-like things back in like the early 90s because I'm ancient. If you couldn't tell by the gray in my beard, like I've been around for a little bit. So I started on the Commodore 64 and the Amiga to kind of
Oh wow.
like coding and making little like I typed in like binary or well numbers to make little sprites and
Yeah.
did things like that all the way back in the early to mid 90s, and then uh, did a couple of things with friends like little games. Was in the flash games scene for a little bit.
Yeah.
uh, did a bunch of that. Yeah, so that's like the beginning of the journey, and then I at some point I found Unity. Started trying to make games like more, for
Yeah.
reals. So the last like 5 years or so I've been trying to actively make it as an indie developer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and other than that, like my background is in graphic design. I worked at an ad agency doing graphic design and web development.
Oh, cool.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, so that's sort of where I come from. I live in Jönköping, Sweden, so that's also a thing.
That's also a thing. I love it. Let me ask you a question because I always am very interested in that point where you go from, the person working in that market agency to then saying, you know what, I'm just going to do games. Like I can do this, right? Like what was that point for you where I'm sure there was a section of time where you were doing this, the game thing from a part-time perspective. You were just doing it kind of as a hobby and doing it on
Yeah.
the side. What was that point where you said like I could probably make a living off doing this full time?
As with many things, it like this last push came from like out of necessity. So I
Yeah.
used to work for a company in the telecom sphere where I actually uh, yeah, I did web development and stuff. They decided to close down the office I was working at. So I was in an office with like three people, and it was
Mhm.
away from their main things, and they were like bought up and consolidated and stuff like that. So they said like, don't you want to move to this other town? And I said, I don't know, I don't want to do that. So I stayed on as a consultant for them, or contractor,
Yeah.
uh, for about a year. And during that time I was saying, okay, I'm going to make 3 games that year. I'm going to
Mm.
release them often, and so on. And then the
How
first
many did you
game,
make?
well, so yeah, I started making Hell's Other Demons, which is like
Yep.
my only project that is actually released on Steam and Switch and so on.
Yeah.
Uh, so so I started doing that. It was supposed to be done in 3 months, and then 3 months became like 6 months, and then I hooked on a publisher, uh, and then it took a little bit longer. So I actually worked on that game for quite a while before I
Mm.
released it. It was like, I don't remember exactly, but it was like 2.5 years or something. And I rewrote it times, and yeah, I was lucky to have like little gigs of uh, contract work and
Yeah, yeah,
from that company and from a few other companies for like programming.
yeah.
So
Good to
so
pay the
that
bills,
kind of came at a good play, like a in a good with good timing for me.
for sure.
I was excited about this project. I had these uh, like a little bit of money coming in, so I could support myself.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
it was just good timing. I was ready for it. That
yeah.
was sort of the point when I started trying to do this. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it happens, right? You know, sometimes some people they just get that thing where they're like, I just got to do this, and other people it just makes sense from a work perspective because you know they either lose a job or something happens, and they're like, well, now's the time to do it if I was going to do it, right?
Yep.
So I think that that makes sense, and it seems to be working out for you so far. You've got some exciting news that just released yesterday. You're being published by Super Rare Games, which is awesome. How did
Yes.
tell me a little bit about that process? Because you said you before we were recording, you've been sitting this on like since September. This news.
Something
Why?
like that. Yeah.
Why does it take so long for an announcement?
Yeah. I don't know exactly, but there's a lot of things. So the thing that Super Rare Games is doing is they're kind of transitioning, or not transitioning, but expanding
Mhm.
from doing a lot of physical Switch releases of indie games
Yeah.
into also adding on, digital, um, Steam, maybe other consoles or
Yeah.
exactly. So I'm not sure how long they've been working on that, but for a while. So it takes quite a bit to set up,
Right.
do all the budgeting, set up all the marketing stuff, and so
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. I'm sure.
So they've been working on this for a while. Um,
So this facet of more digital based games from you know from you to the other games that were mentioned in that big reveal, is this something where you know say that your game does super well, right? Lone Ruin does amazing. Is there some kind of thing in the contract where they're like, well, we still might make a physical version of it depending on the popularity, right?
right. So contractually, we're not talking about platforms or any of
Gotcha.
that
Okay.
yet.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so no promises, but you know their history, so
Right.
you, you,
It's
you can make an educated guess.
yeah, for sure. It's nice because this is a publisher that, you know, has that experience, even though you're not using them for that specific, you know, method.
Yep,
But if something happens, they would be the person to know how to go about making that a physical form if wanted to.
absolutely.
So
And
it is nice to have them under your wing, really.
yep, they have been great so far, like helping me out with all sorts of stuff. So I'm really happy about it. Uh, yeah, it's nice to be part of. Like, we didn't talk a lot about it, but I've been making games mostly on my own.
Yeah.
Uh, for this project, I actually brought in my brother as a sound designer and musician.
Oh, it's cool.
So that's a little bit less lonely,
Yeah.
a little bit less alone, uh, and having a publisher that has a, like, they're not a doesn't feel like a corporation that I'm working with.
Right,
It's
right.
like a group of really cool people that have opinions and are excited about things, and and have good feedback, and
Oh, that's
really
awesome.
knowledgeable in many ways. So it feels like a little bit more like I'm a part of a team than maybe when you're working like totally solo
Right.
on stuff. So yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome.
it's
So
been
it
great.
seems like they take more of like a hands-on approach versus just being like, "Hey, we're publishing you, like go do it and then we'll give you some money," right?
Yeah. Um, I uh, I mean, pitched a game, or rather, just showed it because we had talked about other things back in like the before times
Right. Yeah.
that didn't that we didn't go with at that point, maybe. And then for this, it just happened to work out. So we had talked a while,
Yeah. Yeah.
mostly me and George at Super Rare.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I I wanted to talk about this project too because one of the reasons why it caught my attention, other than it being a super cool looking game, was that you originally had created this as a prototype where you kind of had this challenge of completing a game, a full game, or a slice of a game in 1 week. Uh,
yeah,
which I think is amazing. First off, because I saw the what it looked like from the 1 week, and I was like, this looks real good for just 1 week of work. But
thanks.
two, what was, of course, but two, what was like the inspiration behind that? Was that some kind of game jam? Was that just you doing that as a personal kind of like a goal of yourself? What was going on there?
Mm, so I was working on another game. Like the thing, if you go back a little bit, I released Hell is Other Demons in 2019.
Hmm.
And then I've been like looking for my next project, and I've had the next project for like a couple of times, uh,
Gotcha.
but I've kind of given up on them. So that's like one of the things that like it's like the second album for a band. It's really hard to get it right,
Right.
uh, and uh, and yeah, so I was working on a game, and then I gave that up, and then I started another game, and then I was thinking like I was working on that, say from spring to uh yeah, summer sometime. And
Yeah.
last week before I was supposed to go on vacation, I thought like, let's just do something. I'd played a lot of do you know Snake RX?
Not familiar with it.
It's
Mm,
it's one of those like auto battler kind of games where you have
okay.
you're controlling a snake, and then you choose uh which segments that snake should have, and the segments have different synergies. Some of them are like shooting projectiles, and some are summoning different little uh,
Oh,
yeah. So it's a really
yeah.
like small game, and I was super inspired by that, and I
Yeah,
thought
this
like
looks cool. I'm gonna have to
it's
check
sure.
this out.
Yeah, yeah, it's good, and the soundtrack it's just so good. Uh, so check that out.
Okay, Snake RX.
It's a weird minimalistic game. I know it was done in like 3 months before it was released. It took off. Some streamers played it, and the
Right.
person behind it kind of open about numbers and stuff. So I was like looking at that, and I felt like there's a week now until the end of the or beginning of a couple of weeks of vacation. Like up here
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Sweden,
yeah,
we
yeah.
take vacations like 4 weeks of summer, which is
Oh,
I don't know.
that's fancy.
It's just something we do culturally. So I saw that, and I was like inspired to kind of try something else. And I was like, okay, I got a week. Let's make a little challenge. I also saw some YouTubers doing similar things, like a game in a day, a game in like something. Yeah. So I was in the mindset of, time constraint thing. The other part,
Yeah.
like going back to having a project that you are working on a little bit more long term,
Mhm.
was also coming out of doing that at the same time as a lot of contract work. So, but
Right.
when projects go long, it's really easy to only see the problems. And I was like, I don't want to, I don't want to do that. And time constraints and game jams and such will force you to not ever go into the mode of getting sick of the game. So that was why I was
Right.
inspired to kind of get that thing started and
Yeah.
do that. I also
Yeah,
do
and it
streaming, which helps a lot for getting uh, you know uh, work done, and not
yeah.
just sit on your ass and
Yeah, because you got people literally watching you the entire
yeah,
time. You're like, "I better keep up."
yeah,
Um, I enjoy the idea of pushing yourself kind of, as just a challenge that you gave yourself rather than being, put on by some kinda,
yeah,
major deadline that was actually there. It's just something you did because it does force you to one of the things that I liked was forces you not to kind of see all of the problems because it's so new and because more of the challenge is like how do I get it to just work and how do I get it to feel good? right?
Yeah.
So there's always going to be those little things that are wrong. There's always going to be those pieces that, like, it's not going to be a fully polished, fully fledged game, but is it fun? Does it have a cool mechanic? Does it have something that would interest people? Is it a small slice that shows, showcases something that could be great? Which I think, makes sense, and that's kind of why you had that piece, what is now Lone Ruin,
Yeah.
and why you were able to showcase it and be like, hey, do people like this? Like, should I create more of it? Like, I do enjoy that because it gives you a real quick way to market yourself to an audience, to show, like, within that week you already had something that is, this is the prototype, this is what the game could be. Is there a real, want for
Yeah.
this right away? Which goes to my next question, and that's just, what was that moment where you thought, yeah, I'm going to continue this project, right? Like, did you know immediately after completing it from that first week, or were you still kind of hesitant and then got feedback from people and they were, gung ho about it? Like, what was that like for you?
Um, I think I don't remember exactly what happened there, but as I remember it, it did decently on Twitter. Like I put out something and got a few likes, and I was getting good feedback from
Uh-huh.
like around people, and then I also started talking to some uh, like a good measure is like when you get those Twitter messages, DMs from publishers that are like, what are you doing with this?
Yeah.
Is there anything we can help you with? So that's when I started to think like, uh and I was already sick of my old project. Like, so
Yeah.
I was eager to abandon things, which is like my thing to do. I abandon everything. Uh, so yeah, I was pretty quickly thinking, okay, this is going to be the new project. I
Yeah.
also got my brother involved because I needed him, of course, but also because I needed something that is harder to abandon. And then
Yeah.
another like step on top of that would be like, having a publisher and having these contracts that need to be filled. So I couldn't
Fulfilled.
give it up.
Yeah.
And also it was like, this is something that I can probably finish. My previous project would be like, okay, I'm going to work on this for a year longer or something.
Right. Right.
And then this was like, okay, I'm going to finish this in 3 months, exactly like the Snake RX dude did,
Right.
or a
Right.
person, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so you know, so it wasn't like a certain thing, but
Things
I don't
just
know.
kind of fell into place, it seems
Yeah.
like. Yeah, that makes sense. One thing led to another. How long, just quick question, how long have you been working on this game so far then?
Uh, so end of or beginning of July, I think I did that one week, 5 days. I worked on it for 5 days and like 2 extra days after, and it was a little bit of evenings, but mostly like office hours.
Gotcha.
So that thing, um, I did that, and then I went for a couple of weeks of vacation, and then I've been working on it. I name my streams out of how many days I think I've been working on it, and the last stream was uh 108 or something like that. So it's
Okay.
about 100 days
About 100
of
days.
actual works, something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Okay.
and I
All
feel
right.
like I haven't moved since the first week. It's like
Oh, no.
it's so weird when you start a project, everything happens so fast, and then it just like turns into a slog after the
I don't know.
second
You
week.
should you should watch probably your stream from like stream 1, stream 2 and be like, "Oh, no,
Yeah,
I've made a lot of progress actually." I'm sure you'll
yeah.
feel that way.
I think that's pretty cool. Like since I did stream almost, I would say like pretty much every second of that first week uh, of work. That's a pretty cool thing to go back to once you're a little bit, you know.
It's something that always interests me because, especially for those who are really into the game or, just curious on the process, it's nice to get a view of, the inner workings of how this game really was created,
Mm.
And a lot of the times for streamers who are doing that, you're usually, talking about the problem or explaining kind of what you're doing at that moment. So
Yep.
it's great from a learning perspective if you want to understand development. And it's also just interesting because you're literally creating a devlog without having to actually create one. It's just happening while you're working on the game.
Just
So
in 8.5 hour chunks. People
yeah, there's
actually
probably
kind of
there's
skip.
probably a better way for an abridged version, but like if people really wanted to know what you're doing each and every day, like it's there.
Yeah,
So it does add a layer of accountability if people are like, "Man, this guy's just is he even working on the game? Like where is it?" It's like, "No, you can see exactly what he's
yeah.
doing, you
You
know?"
can tune in every day between whatever 9 and 5 generally. Like
Yeah.
I stream almost everything, and I've tried not streaming, and I've had to not stream due to things under NDA or whatever. And
Yeah,
those
yeah,
days are it's so hard to get shit done. I have no I get spoiled by chat by just
yeah.
having them watch over my shoulder. Like
It sounds like you need that accountability as well.
I do, and I enjoy that accountability too. So it's not
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, hey, if it works, it works.
it does,
That's
it does.
awesome. Let's we've been kind of, lightly talking about the game. Let's actually dive into more of the details about what this game is and what people can expect.
Yep.
If you had to explain Lone Ruin and what it was in, a couple sentences or less, what would you tell someone this game is all about?
I should have that elevator pitch
Yeah,
ready.
yeah, that's
So
it's
it's
okay. We're workshopping it here today.
okay. Yeah, you can give me feedback later. Uh, it's it's a top down roguelike with spell customization. So um, you go through different rooms, you meet enemies, you dispose of them using your spells, and then you get some kind of reward that can upgrade your spells or give you more spells. Uh, so generally, it's like a mix of Diablo and Snake RX and Hyperlight Drifter.
Yeah, okay.
Weird
I
mix,
could
but
see a good amount of that. It's funny because all of the ones you picked were different from the games that I thought you had pulled inspiration from. So, it's super cool to hear that just because when I saw this my mind went to then again based on time frames it probably makes sense. My mind went to Hades, my mind went to Noita. I could definitely see the
Mm,
Hyperlight Drifter from the just the color palette of
yeah,
of everything in there, which man, people you got to just look at a still frame of this game, like so good. um but what was like the main inspiration for the combat style of this game, because this is a very fast paced, like I've watched a couple videos of it of you just constantly dashing back and forth, you have all these
yeah.
giant spells that you're using, like what was the inspiration around combat?
Uh, I think actually, like Diablo is definitely one of the inspirations. So I've been going back in time a lot in this interview. So let's do that again.
Okay, let's do
If
it.
you go back to like I don't know, even dates 2012 or something, 2013, like way back when, I
Uh-huh.
used to work on a game called Tiny Wizard, which was um, actually also like a game jam thing. It was during Ludum Dare, I think.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I made a little game, and then I, in various iterations, tried to make that game, and that was made during the beta of Diablo 3. And there were
Okay.
things that I didn't like about Diablo 3, like I couldn't move with WASD,
You're right.
and like aiming was a little bit weird, and all those things. And then I liked a few things, like some of the spells were cool, and
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah. So a lot of it came from that, and then usually like when I play a game I get super inspired by that combat system. So Hyperlight Drifter is definitely where some of the dashing comes from,
Yeah.
um and just those parts have been in the back of my head for quite a while. And then I got this, like, I get to do whatever I want for a week, and I had a couple of, I had a document that said these things I want to do and these things I don't. And one of the
Mhm.
things I don't want to do is like care about if anyone is going to like it, and if it's unique. I didn't care about any of those things. So,
Right. Just
so
as
I
it's
just
fun.
started. Like I just put those things in there and started. And then that Snake RX game have this economics slash optimizations layer on top of it. So I try to pick things that could combine those, those different parts into something that's interesting to me. So I want something
Gotcha.
that's fast. I want something that's customizable. I want some kind of economic layer where you optimize, buy things, re-roll items in a shop, and so on.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Um,
I can definitely see that, especially from one of the YouTube videos that you have of just gameplay.
mm,
You have seemingly the ability to swap out and buy different spells from to to change your arsenal however you want to
yep.
customize your character based on what you're getting, because obviously it's a roguelike, so it depends on RNG a little bit. But then there's also this, they kind of look like crystals. I'm not exactly sure what they are, but they're like modifier type pieces that will be something that you can slot into each one of those spells. Can you take me
Indeed.
through a little bit more of an elaborate way to just describe kind of what that loop looks like, as far as like customizing your character and building your character out while you're going through this dungeon?
Yeah. Um, they from the start they were like um, just bless. I call them blessings you get, and it
Hmm.
could be like uh, make you explode when you take damage, killing enemies around you, for
Yeah.
example. So it could be triggered by something. It could also be like movement speed up, things like that.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I ran into like a game design problem where if I added more than like five of those, you would like outscale everything, and
Right.
you would have no more choices to make. So I wanted something that, um, had that same flavor, but was a little bit more granular, and gave the player a few more choices to make during a run. Like if I want to have 30 rooms or something for a full run, and I want to give you some kind of reward almost in every room,
Uh-huh.
then I gotta give you
Make little
something to
small
do.
chunks
Yeah.
of it.
So
Yeah.
so I split up those blessings into things that would be like blessings, but for a specific spell, and
Okay.
then just for ease of explaining, I made it like you know the uh, the gems that you put in your equipment in games like World of Warcraft or
Yeah.
uh, Path of Exile or even Diablo,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So that's the inspiration, and then I'm trying to figure out interesting ways to make each run a little bit more unique. I don't
Mhm.
have enough items right now, like both spells and gems, but it's getting there. They're starting to be like combinations of certain spells are better with certain gems, for example, like
Right.
arcane shards and haste uh, will work really well together just because of how those things are designed.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of the thinking is going in right now in terms of
Okay.
development.
That's
Yeah.
cool. Are there any this might be even more granular, but like are there you find these let's call them those mini blessings, and you slot them into your spells, right? Is there a level of, oh well, if you have five of the same type, or five of the same color, like you get additional stats up, like something to that nature?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There isn't, like, that is one of the things uh, that we haven't really figured out. Both I just haven't had time to implement it yet, but it always had that idea
Gotcha.
uh, of of elements. Like if you have four, in this case, like I call them like sapphire and ruby or whatever, because
Yeah,
they're
yeah, yeah, yeah.
sort of gems in the game.
Uh-huh.
So if you have three red gems, then that's something. And even uh, I'm thinking about things like uh, okay, the melee spell is really fun to play with, but it's not optimal. So how can I buff that in a way, and how can I infuse my love for Hyperlight Drifter even more in this game? Like I don't have mana, so I can't like give you mana back or charges directly
Right.
from for the different spells. But what if you could say that you regain the number of charges for a spell for, like, say it has a synergy with the red rubies, for example. So I put
Right.
two rubies in there, and every time I hit an enemy I get some kind of partial charge back for the big Nova spell or something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
You could
yeah.
kind of do that.
That
Um,
makes sense. Yeah, because I could see things like, you have a certain amount of those red or the blue, and you get like extra range on a spell, or you get,
yes.
a second burst of whatever the spell is when you use it once, or something to that nature. Like there's little
Yeah.
ways you could do that, but that does also cause issues where it's a balancing thing, because then you're like, oh
Yeah.
well, I don't want you to be so, just find 5 red gems and you're good, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I totally get that, but it definitely was one of the things that when I was watching it, I was like, I wonder if there's a reason to these colors, right, for all the
There.
different types.
Yeah. There is. It just haven't been implemented
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
fully
it'll
yet.
get there. It'll get there. Um, I wanted to talk also about just like the general mechanics of how this game plays out. You're going down this dungeon, you're going farther and farther down,
Yeah.
but I didn't see really if there was, what is the end game with this, right? Is this something that's more arcadey and it's just how many dungeons can you go down and it just gets progressively harder, or is there, forms of bosses and ultimately an end goal in this game where you are supposed to get to an end piece to do something, right?
Yeah. While Hades wasn't like an initial inspiration, it's become more and more as the game progresses.
Yeah.
So there's definitely like a set number of rooms that the game is procedural. So every room is like bowls of oatmeal unique, uh,
Yeah.
like a procgen saying.
Yeah.
But there's going to be like three different biomes or sections or areas or what do you call them, and
Okay.
they will all end in a boss fight. That's the idea. And then like I hope that we get to figure out how to do a looping system where you could like start from the beginning with your same setup and make it
Oh
really hard.
yeah.
Like if you played Nuclear Throne, there is a way to restart your run or re loop your run or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
with like maintaining all the stuff. And also I do have score in the game. I do love myself some leaderboards.
Hmm.
They're really good at the beginning when there are no bosses to keep track of your progress. So if I'm beta testing uh, with my buddies or with the publisher or whatever, like there is something to measure if you're doing well. Uh,
Okay.
so that's also a thing. And then so it's like beginning of the development, that's really good. And then at the end, when everyone has already finished the game, it's also good to have that kind of optimization layer where
Yeah. Yeah.
you would try to get the highest score and compete amongst your friends.
All right. All right.
So it's that kind of game.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds that's I'm glad it is, because that's more of my type, rather
Mhm.
than the just arcadey see how far you can get. Because I like having that sense of, more of a mission, right? Like I do have an ultimate goal, which is to get to the end
Yeah,
versus just go as long as I can.
yeah.
But granted, everyone has their own opinions, obviously. But I do like the idea of this. It does beg the question, though. If we're going through this, we're fighting this boss, we're getting to the end, right? Do you? And obviously, this can be something where you're like, oh well, not yet, but it's being implemented, or we're thinking about it, right? But like, is there a major story behind this world? Like, what is Lone Ruin? Like, what are we doing here?
There is a setup that's kind of vague. From the beginning, it was always a game that it's not story based. It's not a narrative experience. There are some non fleshed out ideas around why you're doing what you're doing,
Okay.
what the world is, and so on. So yeah, the lone ruin is a ruined city that's built on top of a source of magical goop, we write, and then that kind of is what made the city great, and it's also what made the city go to crap in
Yeah.
the end, right?
Okay.
And there won't be much deeper than that, and that might change in detail, but that's sort of the setup. Uh,
Okay. But
yeah,
what it sounds like, though, is that you're more focused on the gameplay and the actual level to level type strategy, rather than making this more of a story based, or having, that deeper lore in it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I find myself like I'm one of those disgusting people who just skip the dialogue in Hades. Like I just can't. I can't do like I don't think that's what is really great about games.
Yeah, I mean
It
it,
can
every
be, but like it's hard to combine. Like if you have a game that is about being a narrative experience, right? And
right,
it's
right,
that's what that is, but and that's what I'm there for. In a action-based game, sometimes it's nice with a little bit of like a breather between the action.
right.
But mostly, like I just want to get back to slashing things or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right blowing things up.
No, I
Uh,
get it. I
so
get it.
that's I mean, there's a lot of people who are making games that aren't like that. So I think we're fine. Like
Yeah.
my games are probably never going to be that story focused or
Yeah, yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Uh,
And that's
so
fine. There's a lot of people who that's what they want. For myself, pretty much that's I'm included in that group because I
yeah,
did like the story in Hades, and I think it it added a good layer to it. But at the same time, there's a lot of times where when we do our normal episodes for Indie Pod, it's me and a buddy of mine who are talking about the games that we've been playing. And when
mm,
you listen to him, he always goes into like what he thought about the story and what he thought about the lore behind it and why
yeah,
he's interested in the game. And for me, it's never that. It's always, this is what the mechanics are, this is what I like about the mechanics, this is why it's cool. Like the story,
yeah,
half the time I'm always like, I barely paid attention, I don't know what's going on, but it's fun, right? Like,
yeah.
and that's fine. Like if that's your prerogative, like if that's what you're looking for, then that's perfect. That's what this sounds like.
Yeah, it's like that, and at the same time, I'm the guy that's watching 100 hours of lore videos on Hollow Knight on YouTube. Like I don't, I skip the dialogue in game and then have frickin' Moss Bag tell me what is actually going on. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think story in games is best that way, where it's like something that can be experienced outside like even for games that like I would rather have um I would rather have someone talk about the Greek gods in Hades
Hmm.
and explain the different factions or the interpersonal relations and the story
Yeah.
to me than to experience it. I don't know why I'm like that, but I'm like that with a lot of things, like
Yeah.
even
It sounds like you just
with
like
this
things being kind of segmented into
yeah
certain, like,
or
if you're going to hear story, you want it to be about the story and to be centered
yeah
around that. Versus if you want to play a game, you want it to be about the action, the gameplay, and solely focused on that
totally
area, which makes sense.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
also we're conditioned to not expect games to have good stories.
I mean, well,
Like
from,
from when I grew up with games,
yeah,
there weren't any. So I think I'm colored by that too. But
that makes
you
sense.
know,
Yeah. You had like one tiny page of little dialogue that usually was written in
yeah,
bad English, and then
yeah.
you
But it
just
was
killed
always a
some baddies.
princess that needed
Yeah.
that needed saving, and some yeah that's always been not maybe my favorite story. So who knows?
I get it. I get it. Are you
Yeah.
saving a princess in this game?
No,
Oh,
you're not.
well, we're
You're
just
not.
we're changing the script. I like it.
Maybe I'll add that just to spite everyone. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
All right. I look forward to it.
Good,
Um,
good.
I have two final questions. One about the game, one about just general advice. But my last question about the game is really, I know that you can't, obviously, because you have a publisher now. So there's a lot of like, walk on eggshells when it comes to release dates and what you might think, right? And you're in the thick of it right now. You're not going to have an official date. But I did kind of want to get like, more or less a feeling for when people can expect this game, right? Is this something that we can expect within a few months? Is this something that you might be waiting a few years? Like, how's the development process going? Where do you feel like, how confident are you with this game right now?
It is one of those thorny ones. Like we talked about how we were supposed to kind of answer these kinds of things.
Right.
Uh, so uh, the boring answer is release dates and platforms and pricing will be announced at a later date. Uh,
I love it.
but if we break it down a little bit, we can give some kind of like I still feel like I'm I'm in a pretty good place with the general like game mechanics,
Hmm.
the basics of things.
Right.
I know how it's gonna look, but it's like I have half of one area done in terms of graphics. So
Mm,
there's like two and a half more, and who
right.
knows what happens with that. I don't have any bosses in there, so it's gonna be a while. It's not gonna be like uh next month it's out or something like
Right.
that. So it's
Right.
gonna be a
Right.
little bit longer.
Yeah.
Exact dates, I don't wanna speculate
Yeah.
too
No,
much.
that's fine.
It's
That's fine.
we don't
But
we don't have a we don't have a set date, and yeah, but it's not gonna be super soon, and it's not 2025. I can tell you that. That's probably that's probably not breaching my contract too much. So
yeah. 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 No, I
it's
think
somewhere like, you know,
I like the way you answered that though, because it gave context to like there's still a good chunk of work that's left,
yeah,
right? So we're not going to see this, tomorrow.
yeah,
But I wasn't expecting a date because
yeah,
usually people don't want to do it. Like, and I get it because you don't want to put something out there and then people be mad that it's not out or
yeah,
whatever. Um, so I do understand, but it's nice to get the context of how you're doing just from a development
yeah.
standpoint. Are you still going to be working on this by yourself for the majority of it, or is there any emphasis on bringing like an extra developer or two onto the team?
No, the team is probably from the start to the end is going to be mostly like me and my brother. Uh, I do everything except for music and sound, and publishing stuff. Of
Right.
course, there's a lot
Yeah.
of stuff that goes into that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. No, it's gonna be mostly like 90% of the hours put in is probably gonna be me. I
Okay.
don't have any plans to bring anyone else in. Who knows? Maybe I meet someone. Is there Tinder for game dev? Maybe I can. Like, I'm not opposed to the idea. It's just hard to find people that align and are. It's hard to add on people.
Yeah. I think you just made a great business model though there. I'm sure
Yeah,
there's room for a Tinder for game devs to find people to work with. I'm sure someone's going to make that idea now.
yeah. Okay, you heard it here first.
Yeah.
I will take 10% up to 10 million. It's okay.
That's
Something
okay.
like that. You know?
Yeah. That seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Um, once again, I do want to thank you for coming on. I have one last question that I always ask everyone who comes onto the show, which is just general advice. It's for anyone who's looking to get into your place, as far as maybe they want to be a solo dev, maybe they want to work on a team, and they just want to build their first indie game, right? What's some advice that you would give to someone, especially now after creating a game, having a lot of little projects, now working on this new one? What would you have maybe told yourself, I don't know, like 5 years ago, as far as like something that would have helped you today?
So the obvious advice is start 20 years ago. That's harder to live by or to actually enact. But uh, yeah, it is really hard. Like, don't quit your day job if you are gonna be on the streets if you don't get any money in.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta be smart about the money aspect. Um, it's I think everyone is different, and it's really hard to give general advice like that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, always try to see things from multiple angles. Like, a lot of the deals you're gonna get is from someone who wants to launch something like a new Steam competitor, or if they were like be open to those kinds of things. Also, like, streaming is not a revenue stream, so to speak. No pun intended.
Yeah.
Uh, for me, but it does connect me to a lot of people.
Right.
Same with like Twitter. Be out there, try to connect with people, even if you're not on game dev Tinder. You might make connections and just make sure your stuff is there. And also, don't work on your game in like secrecy for 3 years and then show people afterwards and hope
Yeah.
it looks
Show it in
good.
the first week.
Yeah, just make it in the first week. Start small is another good one. Sorry, these are really generic.
That's okay.
Yeah, I don't have any like. I've been lucky. Be lucky. That's
Well,
a
that's
good one.
also a good point. Like a lot of it
Yeah,
is, you have to be good at what you're doing. You have to have that kind of skill, that drive, that tenacity. But you also sometimes have to just be in the right place at the right time. Like
yeah,
there is a level of, is your game going to blow up? Are you going to
yeah,
get those opportunities? Like some of it, unfortunately, is just luck, and that's how it works. But you have to
yeah,
keep trying, and you have to, I would say, be passionate about what you do because of the fact that it is very much a sometimes you just have to get lucky. Because, like, if you don't
yeah,
like what you're doing, right, you're just going to be miserable just trying to, like, to make it big off that one potential of
yeah,
being the next Undertale or whatever it is. But, like, how far and few in between are those games, right? It's
yeah,
not every day that we have another one of those. So I think it does make sense though with what you were saying of like streaming or using Twitter as a means to communicate and to connect. It's one of the
yeah,
things that I suck at doing, which I wish I was better. But it's definitely something that helps. Like I see it all the time. Twitter is a great place for indie devs just because I see constant of promotion of not only that devs games but of other games that they're like, oh, this person's doing a great job, like check it out, or just talking about their games and things of
yeah,
like just general promotion, which I think is great to see. But also, like, if you want to get out there, you have to also help by promoting other people's games and being kind of like an ally to everyone in
yeah.
this community.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool place for all its warts, and
Yeah,
it's
there's
kind of
dark sides to Twitter.
yeah, but it's been all net positive for me at least. Getting into contact with so many, like a lot of what's happened in the last couple of years are due to contacts I made with people. Someone knew someone else. Someone, like, networking is so crucial to get ahead,
Yeah,
and like you gotta do that.
got to do it. All right. Well, for those listening, Lone Rune is currently in development. So if any of it sounded interesting, the main way that you can check it out is over on their Steam page. That's just LONERUIN, Lone Rune. Wishlist the game. It does help out the developers just to make sure that they are getting traction on it, because then Steam will promote the game more. And as well, you'll get any notes or updates when the game does come out, or any updates that go through their Steam page. It's super helpful for both you and the developer. Make sure you do that. Once again, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.